Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started in another minute or two. Appreciate you showing up. Okay, well, I'm going to get started. My clock says 1 o'clock, and I know everybody's busy and in some capacity, even if you're still catching some last rays of summer. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I am recording this session, so we'll make that readily available for people who can't be here. I know it was short notice, but the timing just seemed good to start the conversation as we've started to field some questions via email. And so this is a good opportunity for us to discuss some upcoming and important items related to practicum in the fall for the faculty. So let me see if I can move us forward here. Oh, there we go. Hold on a minute. There we go. I'm working too many screens here. I don't know. We haven't had a chance to meet face to face yet in the building. Maybe that will happen this year. I'm Joanne Lombardi, the Practicum and Community Engagement Coordinator here at the faculty, responsible for overseeing all the placements. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Wendy. I don't know where she is on your screen. Oh, there she is. She's waving. Wendy is the new Cindy. Cindy retired after many years working here at the Faculty of Ed. And Wendy has joined us from Health Sciences, where she gathered great experience with practicum placements for the students that were in occupational and physiotherapy. So not only does she bring a wealth of experience, she brings high energy and a real positive attitude. So she's been a delight to work with. So Wendy and I are the team that primarily oversee all of the placements, and we'll be doing so for the year. So we've had a great summer so far, getting ready for the fall. As I mentioned, the goal is to give you an update on the placement process, just to give you sort of where we stand. We know it's still 1 month out, but you can be assured that we've been working on this really since the beginning of May. I'm going to talk about just some new things, some new expectations that we've got in place for practicum for this year. I will be happy at the end of towards the end to give an update on the temporary certification process, because there's definitely some links there with practicum. Some of you had sent in some questions in advance. Thank you for that. I am going to address those questions. However, I am going to let you know that we're not monitoring the chat during this session. It's just Wendy and I flying solo because our technical people aren't here today. And so we're not going to answer questions through chat. Okay, I apologize for that. I will address the questions that came in advance. And if you have subsequent questions after, please email me directly, and then I'll be able to create a document to give you all of that follow-up, okay? So if there's any questions that come as a result of this, please record them for your own purposes elsewhere, and we'll send out an FAQ after the fact, okay? So you folks are pros at Practicum. You've already had a couple, and I know some of you have even been working in the spring, May and June in an emergency supply capacity. So it's really interesting to know that you're coming into practicum with, maybe more experience than other candidates have had other years. And I think that's pretty exciting. But obviously the practicum is really so integral to the program and the success of the program, because it is that mentored program, right? It's that opportunity to share, reflect, collaborate, plan, co-teach, all those kinds of things in partnership with somebody who's a veteran, somebody who's experienced and has other ideas and other perspectives and other ways of maybe knowing, being, doing, and understanding. So it really is a very vital and important part of our program, and we value and are grateful for the associate teachers that work with us and for the time and talents that they give to you through their feedback. And we'll talk a little bit about that as it goes on. So as mentioned, here's just a few of the things that you can expect in a practicum placement. And please keep in mind that throughout all placements, observation time is still really an important part of your learning. And the practicum are designed to be incremental, so that over time you will increase your teaching responsibility, but that you'll certainly still have time within your day to observe your associate teacher teaching, and maybe even have opportunities to go and observe other teachers teach. And then, you know, make notes of those observations, reflect on them, discuss them, share them, and help to grow your depth and your knowledge. Couple things. We have updated our student information handbook. It will be posted online, and it is really required reading. And I say that respectfully, because there are many times where I meet with teacher candidates who have questions about things, and dare I say, sometimes I will say to them, well, that was outlined in the handbook. Did you have a minute to read the handbook? And they sheepishly admit that they haven't. So it is important that you take time to read the handbook, whether you're in year 2 or entering our program in year 1 for the first time. There are some really important things in that handbook that really are must know, must do. So please read that. We've also implemented this year an agreement, if you will, so that you are fully apprised. And as I said, you've been down this path, you know what Practicum is all about. So I don't want to dismiss your experiences to date in any way, shape, or form. But we do want you to take a look at the teacher candidate Practicum agreement, which just reminds you of our expectations for you, because they are clearly defined in the handbook, and they're really designed to support your success. The kinds of things that are included are things that I know many of you will do regularly and maybe take for granted. But I always kind of go back to when I hear from people, when I hear from associate teachers, when I hear from principals, when I hear from candidates themselves, and they may have questions or concerns. You know, they may be wondering, you know, why people aren't showing up on time, why people aren't handing in lesson plans. Those are the kinds of questions that come to me all the time. So the teacher candidate Practicum agreement is really based on what's in the handbook. And we just want to know that you've taken time to read it, and you're well informed about your obligation to the program and your obligation to the Practicum experience. So that's something new that we're putting in place this year. Something else new that I hope you find to be a really valuable tool, and truly I think it will be of great benefit to our year 1s, but we anticipate our year 2s can benefit from it as well too. And it's a mentoring agreement. And it really is designed to be a starting point for conversations at the beginning of your placement. Once again, I go back to some of the challenges that get presented to me. I will have candidates and or associate teachers say to me, well, you know, they weren't receptive to my feedback, or the teacher candidate will say, well, they didn't offer me feedback, or they left after school to go pick up their child and we didn't sit and talk. These are the kinds of stories I hear. And they're valid and they're real, and we want to help mitigate some of those challenges that sometimes unfold in a placement. So this agreement is really just a starting point for a planning conversation. You and your associate teacher can discuss, what will the feedback look like? When will you get it? How will you get it? What are the expectations for lesson plans and handing them in? And what's the timeline? Other kinds of things like that will just help you have an initial conversation. Most of you, I dare say, have already that confident teacher voice where you can enter a practicum and engage in that collaborative conversation. But we know sometimes that's a little bit harder of a starting point. So please see this document as just an opportunity to have a starting conversation, which I know many of you can initiate on your own quite readily, but just to cover some of these basics so that there are no surprises. So everybody can begin with the end in mind, and you are set up for a real successful placement, okay? So that is also something a little bit new this year. This is not so new, but I do know last year it was used, it was not used consistently. So I would like to remind you that it's really important when you enter the school or in advance of that you've completed a emergency contact information sheet. That's really important for your associate teacher to have on file readily available, and also for the office to have readily available. We hope and we anticipate that your placement will go without incident, but sometimes there are bee stings while on bus duty. Sometimes there are slips and falls and things like that sometimes require some attention. And so it's very important that the school that you are entering into have some readily available information about you personally, just in case of an event. Okay, so please make sure that you take a moment to complete that too prior to your placement. As noted, and I'm not going to review this, as I said, you folks are good at this now. You've got a few placements under your belt, but please, know that there are expectations. And your associate teacher is aware of those expectations. They are receiving a copy of the exact same handbook. They are receiving a copy of the exact same mentorship agreement, okay? Just to help support your collaborative relationship getting off to a great start. So do know that those things are in place to support you along the way. As I mentioned, Wendy and I have been working on placements since May with over 40 school boards. And that is a very, it's not a linear process in that there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of communication, and there are different processes across the province. In Thames Valley District School Board, London District Catholic School Board, and Waterloo Region School Board, we have a database of teachers that were newly signed up in the spring, and we will do the placements here for those boards. The rest of the boards we will contact via whatever format they've asked us to. Sometimes it's a spreadsheet, sometimes it's an online database that they monitor to give them our practicum requests. And then we wait for information to come back. Sometimes they'll check with us to see if something will work. We'll get back in touch with them. And it's very much a very fluid and very, very ongoing process. It is true that whatever assignment you will see in the portal when the portal is open, I want you to really know it is the best placement that is available for you, whether it's locally placed here in our region or across Ontario. And sometimes it seems like it might be a little bit odd that you're doing that kind of same assignment a second time. If that's what the school board has given us, that means they have nothing better to give us to meet the requirements, okay? And similarly here in London, as well across the province, there are expectations for travel. Even in Toronto, they ask, what are your 6 top zones? We get placements back that aren't in the people's preferred 6 top zones. It doesn't make sense, I know, but that's what they're giving us. That means that's what they've got. And I know sometimes it's difficult. It creates some challenges. It puts people in an awkward situation, perhaps for transportation or childcare. We're very respectful and mindful of that. You need to know that we don't treat any of that lightly. But keep in mind that not only here, but across the province, the faculties of ed are vying for spots across all these school boards, and they will give us the best they've got. Okay, so that's important, just to recognize that. As you know, travel could be required a little further than maybe what you're used to. You do know that people who had put notes in about relying on public transit, we certainly take that into consideration. Wendy has been incredibly effective at using Google Maps to try and map out suitable locations, but the location is not our top priority. Our top priority is meeting OCT requirements to ensure that you've got divisional grade and subject requirements. That's what's important. And therefore, the location is not the highest priority. And it can't be, because we need to try to get you what you need. For Practicum 3, we've worked really hard to ensure that divisional requirements are in place. So if you're primary junior and you've only had primary, we want to get you junior now, because otherwise Practicum 4 has to be junior, and that narrows our window of opportunity. Okay, so those are the things that we look at. It's a very complex process, especially dealing with almost 400 candidates and 40 boards to get a good fit. In secondary, sometimes teachers are teaching English and civics. we'll take it because we need the English subjects. And yes, civics being an open course, you can be asked to teach too. Those are the things that you need to think about it. And those are the things you have a conversation with your associate teacher about too. Okay. If you're in a placement situation where the subjects seem, if one of the subjects works, but maybe the other one doesn't, go back to that mentorship agreement. And how are you going to work that through? And if it becomes a real predicament for you, we certainly need to know about that. But I have to give you my assurance that all the placements have been carefully reviewed and vetted. And while it might not seem ideal, it is the best placement we have for you, okay? If by chance there is a placement that you receive that is completely unacceptable for whatever reason, I cannot at all give reassurance that we'll have something suitable for you in time for the start of placement. Okay, like we'll work on it. We don't shut any doors. This is an ongoing process throughout the entire year. But if we have to go back to a board and say, this isn't going to work. I've had boards say to us, then you're out of luck. That's all we've got. Okay, we don't know what to expect with all of our different partners. So just know that it's been a very thoughtful process, not just from our office, but with all of the people that we rely on at the different boards that we work with too, okay? We are hoping to begin our notification process this week, which I have to tell you, I am so excited about. We are well ahead of the curve. And the good news is the school board placements from outside of our region, those people were already given early advance notice in the spring if their school board put that in place already. The people in Thames Valley, Waterloo, and London Catholic, they signed up just in the spring, so we're not anticipating anything could have changed. So what we typically do, as you probably may recall, we notify associate teachers and principals first. They will receive a copy of the handbook, a copy of the agreement, some information about temporary certified teaching, which I'll get to momentarily. And we'll wait a few days. Hopefully there won't be any emails that come back to say things have changed, but I know that always is the case. Teachers can get reassigned at the last minute. Unfortunately, I have to say that your placement is really tentative until the very first day, even if you've walked in before, because sometimes even on the first day of school, there are classroom changes and teacher changes, and school, they rework the school to some capacity. So your flexibility and adaptability is greatly appreciated. But all that being said, once we open the portal, we invite you to reach out to your associate teacher as you've done in the past. And they still may be a little on vacation, rightfully so. It was a tough year last year. So don't worry too much if they don't hear back from you. But step one, they're going to hear from me. Step two, when we open the portal, they will at some point in time hear from you too. And it won't be a surprise. They will be expecting to hear from you, okay? But as I said, please note that it's a busy time of year for them too. So don't get too anxious if they don't get back to you promptly. Give them some time, before you do your follow-up, but I know in due time you will hear from them. I've actually heard from some teachers myself who are already in the planning mode, and they were so kind and gracious, and they just said, I know you can't tell me details yet, Joanne, but can you just tell me, am I getting somebody? I'm starting to do my planning. So they're starting to think about it, and they're all on a different schedule. Of course, it is only the middle of August. So, please be respectful and mindful of that. But I am pleased that we are reaching out to people earlier than we ever have to give them advance notice for planning purposes. And hopefully you will benefit from that as they do too, okay? So as I said, we'll update the portal. So what will happen is you'll receive notification when the portal opens, okay? Once the portal opens, if you have your documentation in place, I'll get to that in a moment, and we've got a placement for you, you will see it, okay? That portal will continually be updated because information will continue to come to us. There are some boards that have said to us very clearly, we cannot even, we'll get back to the last week of August. We know that. that they're in a last week of August mode, and that's quite all right. That's the best they can do. But we're not going to hold back notifying everybody because of those off situations. So if you don't have a placement initially, yes, it's disappointing, but don't despair. Don't be distraught. This process is now going to go full speed ahead. And when we get information, we will continually update the portal along the way. And I do know from past experience, there will be some placements, unfortunately, but true, that might not even get confirmed until that week of September 6th. And it might not even be till the Friday. And placement starts on Monday. And that is the reality of education and assigning people. Okay, it is their harsh and hard reality. It isn't, you know, great for any of us on our end, but it is a possibility, a slim possibility. But I can assure you, if you don't have a placement as August unfolds, we know that. And we're still working on it. We're still monitoring all of our, you know, partners and waiting to hear back from them. Okay, so just so you know that, I know it's hard to wait. It takes a lot of patience, but it is the process as such. I will let you know, though, we are going to kind of run down a little list here. So I'm going to get Wendy maybe to pipe in a moment. So we want to be transparent with you and let you know. So I can tell you right now, Thames Valley, London Catholic, and Waterloo have all been placed. Okay, we've got placements on the books for people. The next step is we have to notify the people to ensure that they can still accept the placement we're giving them. Okay, and maybe some will come back and we'll have to make some changes. I will give a caveat here. There are some people actually in all of those boards, Waterloo Region to Waterloo Catholic, Thames Valley, London Catholic, Thames Valley, where we have crossed boards because we did have a suitable placement for you in the partner board because we had nothing for you in your board of choice. So for example, if you had chosen Thames Valley and you see, gosh, that's weird, I'm going to a high school in London District Catholic. First of all, you won't have to teach religion, so you can be assured of that. But second of all, that means we had nothing for you in Thames Valley that would meet the requirements that we're looking for, okay? But we are confident that the placement we've got for you is a really great placement to do that. So as I said, and this is not a new practice, this has been in place for the 2 years that I've been here and long before that, is that we will look at partner boards. And that same will hold true when Wendy gets to her list. For example, if we hear back from Upper Grand and they don't have something for you, then we're going to start looking. We'll switch to another board because we're working hard to get placements. Okay, so the 3 local boards are in really good shape, and Wendy is just going to do a quick rundown as to what some of the other boards are at.
Hi everybody, happy to meet you all. Hopefully see you all in a few weeks, but I'm not rushing or wishing it away. Soaking it all in. I think what I want you guys to know about me is, girls, guys, everyone, is that I will go that extra step for you all. Like, you know, sometimes I'll get an answer back and I'll be like, I'll just push and ask one more question. So just know that I will always do that. I have nothing, my philosophy is it doesn't hurt to ask. So that's what I always do. So I have this week with Joanne, all of the boards that we reach out to independently, like separate from Thames, London, and Waterloo. I followed up with my contacts in every single board, basically, you know, introducing myself and asking them, when are we going to hear back? Like, what's the timeline kind of thing? So some of them are getting back to me and others aren't, which, like Joanne said, rightfully so. They're still soaking up their vacation. But just to give you a really quick rundown, Avon Maitland, we have half of you placed, still waiting on half. Brant, Haldeman, Norfolk Catholic District School Board, waiting to hear. Bruce Gray, waiting to hear. Ones that have specifically told us, leave us alone until the first week of school. Halton District School Board, Hamilton Catholic, Hamilton Wentworth, Upper Grand, we won't know until the fall. So if any of you on the call today are within those boards, we got to wait. Toronto Secondary, if anyone's on the call from that, luckily you've all been matched, and I've actually connected all of you with your associate teachers. So some of you have already been connected. Toronto Elementary, though, we haven't heard anything. The virtual board, if you're part of the virtual board, those are starting to come in. Waterloo Catholic, some of them are matched, some of them we're waiting on. And the other big one, I guess, York Region. There's 16 of you in that board, and they're working on it and hope to hear by the end of August. So I am on vacation next week, but I will be getting as much as whatever I get this week, we will get matched. And then as soon as I get back, obviously it'll be nose to the grindstone and trying to get as many of you placed, so that, you know, like the worst situation, not finding out till the Friday before you start. Hopefully we don't have too many of those ones. But I think, Joanna, is there anything else there?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Wendy. One thing I did want to comment too is we are also waiting, and I just, once again, we just want you to be informed, not to cause concern, but we're also waiting to hear back from boards because we're a placement program, and Western has many placements across many programs, hence why we've been able to you know, have the wonderful Wendy join us from a similar program. All of our partners that we work with, we need to have placement agreements in place with all of our partners. So all of the school boards that we work with, we need partner agreements with. And so there's been some review of that. And as a result of that review, we are waiting for some agreements to come back from some boards. Okay. So I have to say this to you: in the event that we don't have a partner agreement in place, Western University's policy is you can't begin a placement. So it's in process, it's underway, we are working on it, we are aware of it. And partners across Ontario know that Western and all universities require these to be in place. So I'm just in case, it's sort of like that Friday thing. We hope nobody has to wait till Friday to find out. And we hope nobody has to find out that, oh, we haven't got that agreement yet back from the board. But Wendy and I are working closely with Western Legal. Like, it's not just us, this is a big venture. And I want you to be assured that it's in hand, but we're still working on that too. But just for the sake of transparency, I think it's important that you understand all the things that we have to go through to place people. It's just not, oh, he teaches English, we've got English. It's much more complex than that. Okay, so thanks, Wendy. That's great. So as I said, just to review, when we'll send the email when the portal is open, so you can start reaching out. If you're not listed yet, my advice is just, you know, don't torment yourself checking, you know, every day, all day long. Check once a day, 4 o'clock, or every other day at the end of the day to see if there have been some updates. But be assured, if we know about you, we track everybody diligently to make sure that placement has come in. Okay. Okay, let's see if I can. Okay, there we go. So how does this link to temporary certification? Well, first of all, I want you to know that as a result of us opening up the temporary certification early process, we submitted in June, July, about 115 applications to the college. Those were based on that highly rigorous set of criteria that we had established back in the spring. So at the completion of Practicum 2, what the requirements were. Of those 115 or so, I think that number of 50 may have changed. I think I've heard from about 52 people who have received their temporary certificate. We have asked that they send a copy to me. We just store it electronically in your electronic file here so that we know you have receipt of that. Okay. As we had hoped, and I've had conversation throughout the summer with board people to see how the early arrival of a temporary certificate, to see if the arrival of a temporary certificate could in some capacity be supported during our early practicum placement in September. And while the initial uptake from the boards was very, very exciting, and they thought, yes, this has got maybe possibilities, let's talk it over. They did some problem solving, they did some brainstorming. And at our most recent meetings, and I had sensed that we were moving in this direction, it really does seem that the very best way to start the year with or without a temporary certificate is to get that traditional placement. And curiously enough and respectfully, I like that even the boards acknowledge, they said it's really important for them to ensure that the practicum experience is intact, that the faculty is meeting the OCT requirements. And there's too many variables and far too many unknowns at the start of the school year to assure consistency of any kind of temporary teaching experience that would then qualify for practicum. So to preserve and protect and uphold our responsibility to candidates who know they need, 80 minimum 80 days over 4 practicum blocks, that everyone will be receiving a typical traditional practicum placement for practicum 3. What's exciting, however, though, and I'm really excited about this for many reasons, is that many people have their temporary certificate. At the end of practicum 3, many more people will be eligible to apply for their temporary certificate. And this will change the trajectory very much for the final spring practicum 4. Because then it will look very different. People will be that much closer to getting the required number of days, and there will be many more opportunities at school boards to apply for long-term occasional teaching opportunities that extend beyond just a 4-week period. Our practicum block of 5 weeks in the fall was not conducive to temporary teaching. And even there was some discussion about they could reassign people and ship them around and do all kinds of crazy things. That sounded really good initially, but when principals and board office people sat with me to work out the logistics of it, it actually would have been so much work for school administrators at the busiest time of the year, starting a school. So we're moving forward with practicum 3 being a regular traditional practicum placement. There will be a letter available to you as principals and associate teachers explaining this. If by chance you are in receipt of a temporary certificate, we know that the principal could, if they were in a really dire situation, rely upon a temporary certified teacher to help out in a classroom. And that's okay. We can support that to a limited capacity. We do not want it to have a great impact on your practicum classroom. Your responsibility is to those children and youth and that teacher. But should it happen that the principal has done all the regular calling out methods, because boards are also governed by a procedure that they must follow to fill jobs. If there are unfilled jobs and if someone in the school has a temporary certificate, the principal could be inclined to ask that teacher to fill in. We strongly recommend that be a discussion with the associate teacher and the teacher candidate to minimize impact on the practicum classroom. Associate teachers do not want a revolving door of coming and going. We recommend that it happen no more than 3 times over a 5-week period to maintain that consistency and the integrity of the practicum. And all of that is outlined in that highlighted blue document there, which you will have access to. Okay, so it's not what some people were anticipating. I know many of you had said to me, I've got my certificate, I would love that opportunity should it arise. We couldn't make it happen. We couldn't make it happen in a way that was going to support the children in the school, the teachers, the principals. And it was just becoming so logistically challenging that the safest, best way for us to meet our obligation to you for practicum and our obligation for OCT requirements was to proceed with a regular practicum. The temporary certificate will be helpful for maybe some of you for 3 days during practicum. It will be helpful if you have your certificate and you're doing some teaching in December. If your AFE hours are done, that frees up some time to do some supply work, and it will certainly be helpful for the fall, for the spring. Okay, as I've said all along, this early adoption process we took this year is a bonus. It's not a must-have. It's, if you don't have it, it's not a roadblock to your success. It's not an impediment to finishing the program. Our obligation to you is that you will complete the program as scheduled in spring of 2023, meeting all of the requirements, not only of the university, but of the College of Teachers. Okay, so that letter will be available for your review as well as sent to associate teachers and principals. So for those people that weren't in that first batch of temporary certification, We're going to resume this again in the fall at the end of Practicum 3. Okay, we'll start that process up again. So at the end of Practicum 3, if you have a satisfactory Practicum 3 report with no concerning comments, we will reach out like we did in the spring to principals, asking them for a recommendation. We value and highly regard our principal partners. They know what's going on in their building. They know the kinds of people they want to hire. They are aware of good, effective pedagogy, teaching, classroom management, all of that. So we don't necessarily need the principal to have seen you, though in many cases they will have seen you teach, but they are masterful at even interpreting associate teacher reports. So the principal will get a copy of your Practicum 3 report and we'll ask them if they can recommend you for temporary certification. And you must have your 90 hours completed, because here's the thing. You've got 2 blocks of time coming up in the calendar for that to happen. But being in receipt of a temporary certificate, please keep in mind, you can't graduate our program if your AFE isn't on the records. Okay, that's as equally important as it is to Practicum. So hopefully your AFE is well underway, and that will now open up opportunities for you to go ahead. So whenever those requirements are met, even if the 90 hours happens a little bit later on, this process will continue to unfold. So we anticipate temporary certification will sort of be your first entry into the profession. And then when all program requirements are in place by spring of 2023, convocation and graduation happen, then we'll move to permanent certification status with the college. Okay. If you are interested in sort of pursuing the temporary certification, the first step is to make sure you go to OWL and submit that document. That tells us, yes, I'm interested in this. I want to be considered. And there's lots of information in OWL. You will need to have started your process with OCT to get your OCT number. You are responsible for sending lots of documents to the college. The only document we send is called the faculty report. We don't send the transcript. We don't send anything. You send everything, we send a faculty report. And as noted, we will start sending those faculty reports again the middle of October, okay? After Practicum has been completed, we'll start sending them then, probably on a weekly basis. So there's not like a hard deadline on this. Again, you can work to your schedule, to your needs, so that you can meet the requirements, okay? But once you've met our requirements, according to Practicum 3, we can submit a faculty report. Your other documents will be on file at the college. They get married at OCT land, and boom, you'll get a certificate, provided things happen in a timely manner. The college has been inconsistent, dare I say. Some certificates get issued promptly, others seem to take a lot longer. I will say the ones that seem to take longer, sometimes the snag is because they're looking for a different kind of document from the candidates themselves, okay? Our report is, well, cumbersome to say the least. It's just one report we send in, okay? So on to some questions. These were questions that were asked. People sent them online. Thank you very much for those submissions. So a couple things here. What if I don't get a placement? As noted, we're working with partners right up until the Friday before placement. And if by chance you still don't have a placement ready to go on September 12th, I can assure you we can start a placement anytime that week, or as late as September 19th, or maybe even the 20th if necessary. We need a good 4-week block of time for it to be a meaningful, valuable, practical experience for you. But this does happen on occasion that we get late information back, okay? So we have a really extraordinary record of getting people placed, quite extraordinary. And it's because of people like Wendy, who have always asked those extra questions, who have dug a little deeper, who have pushed a little harder, but it sometimes requires patience, okay? So I am not expecting we won't have placements, but for some of you, it may be a bit of a wait, okay? If on the off chance there is not a placement for you in September that matches your requirements, because keep in mind, it's not just about a placement, it has to work for your requirements. We will take that AFE time on the calendar, so check the calendar. There are 3 AFE weeks in November. We'll add a 4th week to that. just to end at the Christmas break, and we will be looking for placements for November, December, okay? There are some people who, for various reasons, are on a slightly different calendar schedule, and they already know they need that time because of catching up. Some people, due to illness, missed a placement last year, things like that. We refer to those people as out of sequence because there's sometimes disruptions that we can't anticipate, but we will use that AFE block of time if necessary to get you a placement, okay? So that by Christmas, you'll be caught up like everybody else. That's always our goal, to get people across the ultimate finish line at the same time. There have been a few questions about a labor strife, and I'm not going to weigh in politically on that much as I might like to, but right now it's business as usual. It's unfortunate that negotiations sometimes happen in the media and in the press, but until we hear otherwise from our school partners or our federation partners, we are planning for candidates to be on placement. Should there be any kind of disruptions, work action, whatever, as soon as we know, we'll let you know, okay? My advice to you is wait till you hear from us. You may hear something from your associate teacher. If that's the case, I would ask that you reach out to me so that we can get verification and validation, not to dismiss, not to suggest what they're telling you isn't accurate. It probably is. Their source may not match our source. We are responsible for you. Okay, you are our responsibility. So we take that seriously. And so we will share with you whatever information we can in the most timely way we can. But right now, you know, business as usual. While you're on placement, you know, continue to check your UWO email. That is our preferred method of communication. And as I said, it's unfortunate that, you know, as school starts up, there's lots of things swirling around the internet. But as far as I know, we're opening schools. Teachers are willing to host our candidates. We had a record number of teachers sign up in the spring. That is so heartening. So yeah, they love having you folks in. The stories we get back are amazing, and you're a big help to them. So business as usual. Lesson planning and implementation. I liked this question. Someone who's keen to maybe start doing some advanced work. And so hence why I'm really excited that we are going to get information out in a timelier manner than ever before for most of you. Unfortunately, it won't be for all of you. And so once you have an opportunity to connect with your associate teacher, then by all means you can get the placement going, but hopefully you'll get the grade in the subject and you can maybe dig your head into that too a little bit. But keep in mind that the planning really does need to be done in collaboration, right? And teachers themselves are working on it. They've asked me, am I getting someone? Am I getting someone? Because they want to know too. So they're already thinking about how they're going to utilize your skills and your services. There are in the handbook, at the end of the handbook, you'll see lots of appendices. The handbook says 60 pages, but it's not 60 pages of writing. There's 40 pages of samples. And one of the things at the back of the handbook I encourage you to look at is the Practicum 3 report. You should always begin with the end in mind. What are they going to be looking for? What evidence will I have to give my associate teacher for success? And there's also a weekly expectations for Practicum 3. And it breaks down the Practicum over 4 or 5 weeks, how you can grow and develop in incremental steps and stages. And that's a great starting conversation for you to have. By the end of Practicum 3, you should still not be teaching a full day. We still want you to have time for observation. So up to 75% of the day by the end of Practicum 3, okay? It's still, even though you've done supply teaching, this is not supply teaching. This is different. Your supply teaching, you're walking in, right, to fill somebody else's lesson plan. This time you're still doing that yourself. There are some great lesson plan templates that we've added to the handbook as well. So I encourage you to take a look at those. This is sort of specific to one course, but at the same time, it's a general question. Should I participate in the music class? You know, when I'm in PJ, the music teacher's coming in, you know, what should I do? Again, it goes to the question of, or the opportunity for observation, observe other people teach. So even if you're not if you're not in JI music or IS music, PJ people, you're taking it all. Definitely stick around when the music teacher's there, unless your associate teacher has another plan for you. Okay, remember that. But yeah, we want you to have opportunities to engage, participate, and observe other teachers teaching. Okay. And if you get an opportunity to go into other classrooms as well too, try to set that up. Travel, as I've noticed, we really do our best to give you a reasonable travel distance. We try to keep it under 40 minutes. That sometimes is easy to do and other times it's not. As I said, we are working first and foremost to meet OCT requirements. Location is not our priority. We've got to make sure that you've got your both divisions in intermediate, senior. We have to make sure you have at least one of your teachables. Obviously, we really try hard to give you two, but sometimes it's about availability. The practicum process is very much supply and demand. And that means we know what we need and then they've got what they can offer. And it doesn't always align as nicely as we would like it to. So hence why travel sometimes becomes necessary, because we can get you a better fit in another location. So I do know, speaking with people from Thames Valley and even other boards, sometimes people think, they don't want to leave the big city, but I'll say it again, I've said it for 4 decades, some of those smaller communities are some of the best golden gems where you want to start some teaching. So once again, we'll do our best to meet travel requirements that you've outlined for us in advance. I do know in the past, the ESC has done a good job, I think, of trying to arrange some ride sharing and things like that, which is very helpful that it's sort of self-directed that way. And in many cases, we have more than one candidate going to schools, not always, but in many cases, certainly locally, we do try to support that as well. Okay. Teaching, how will practicum expectations apply to those with a temporary certificate? Okay, so just to reiterate, you will have a regular practicum placement. At the end of your regular practicum placement, you will get a Practicum 3 report completed by your associate teacher on record for that course credit, quarter credit in our program, whatever it is, and to meet OCT requirements. If by chance you do temporary certified teaching, and we recommend no more than 3 days, it's going to look slightly different. If you leave your classroom because the principal's tapped you on the shoulder, he needs you down the hall, or she needs you in another classroom, you have to be marked absent from practicum that day. Your associate teacher will mark you 1 day absent. But alternatively, at the end of your teaching day, you will go online. There's a link in OWL, and you will report 1 day of temporary teaching. So your number will stay the same, but it will be 1 less practicum day plus 1 temporary teaching day. Okay, that's according to OCT regulations. At the end, when you submit that online report, the principal needs to verify you had a successful temporary teaching day. And once again, at the end of the placement, the associate will give you a practicum report showing how many days you may have been absent. We recommend no more than 3, okay? As I said, the link for that self-reporting is in OWL, and then we add that to your tally. When your report comes in, it will show 24 days minus 3, 21 days, but you've now added 3, so you still get credit for 24 days of teaching, okay? So you'll still get your report plus temporary certified teaching days if it happens. Yes, you can still apply for a temporary certificate. As I said, we will not be submitting any further faculty reports to OCT until after Practicum 3 is over. Those requirements were outlined earlier, but you can begin looking into that if you haven't already done so, just to see what they ask of you. They ask you to do lots of things at OCT, okay? So next steps. Look for us to send you an email to notify you that the portal is open. And as per usual practice, you will reach out to your associate teacher. Be mindful that they may not get back to you right away, so don't despair. With appropriate time, give them some time. If they haven't gotten back to you, nudge them gently. But August is weird for those people re-entering the classroom, so just be mindful of that. There's going to be more information coming about that first week. I, for one, am grateful we have that T2P week to start the year. There's some great sessions, virtual as well as on site for those of you who are able to be in London for that. I think it's a wonderful way to start the year on a really positive note. It does give our partners in the school an opportunity just to let the dust settle. Some people might say, but I want to be there for the startup of the school. Trust me, by week 2, the school is still starting up. You're not going to miss much. But it does give the classroom teachers a chance to settle in. Sometimes classrooms get reorganized. There's a lot going on in schools that first week. That yes, it could be valuable learning, but I assure you, when you get there, you'll jump right into some very, very valuable learning experiences too. So that's what's to come. As I said, moving forward, Wendy is off next week. We'll be right back at placement updates the following week on a regular basis thereafter, right up until and maybe even after the 9th of September. Practicum starts September the 12th. And I'm going to leave it at that. I do see there are some questions in the chat, or there's a number in the chat room bar. I'm not even going to open it, folks. If you wrote a question in the chat room bar, please email it to me directly, jplombar@uwo.ca. I will compile those questions into a supplemental document, and I will send out this recording once it gets converted to YouTube or whatever the techie people have to do with it to make it safe and secure. And I'll send you that plus any other supplemental documents that you might need. Okay, so I apologize, I'm not going to engage in chat right now. And certainly sometimes people have specific questions I know they might want to ask privately anyways, so I want to respect that. I want to respect your time and your attendance here today on this glorious day in August. Please enjoy the rest of the day and look for more information to come. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.